Welcome back to SouFLoTV again. It's your host with the most. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let's get into this crazy story. A white couple who adopted some black children just received hundreds of years in prison. Justice is served. And when I first saw this story, bro, I said nothing is going to come of this. But thankfully, something did. Sometimes the system actually works. So a white couple from West Virginia, they were collectively sentenced, husband and wife, together to 375 years in prison. Damn. First of all, if I'm standing in any courtroom and a judge says 100 years in prison, I'm just going to go ahead and collapse and hope that I pass away. So, they can just take me out to the morgue because I'm not going to be able to do all that time, at least in my mind initially. 375 years in prison for forcing their 5 adopted black children to work on their farms as slaves while being berated with racial slurs. Whew. So they figured they have a farm, they got some land. How do we get cheap labor for the land? Well, let's do what our ancestors did. Let's get some little ninjas and let's work them to death on this plantation here. And what they did was they adopted children. Hey, white people who adopt black kids, I appreciate you, because them kids, a lot of the times, stuck in the system or coming from abusive backgrounds, and they need love and care. Okay, and it doesn't matter who's going to give you love and care as long as you're getting love and care as a child. But please don't take this as a disrespect. I always look at the dynamics of that as something crazy, because I'm always curious, why didn't you adopt children of your own kind? There are a lot of white children who are out there who are stuck in the system as well, who are being abused as well, who need love and care from responsible, loving, caring adults as well. So why did you go for black children, knowing that you don't share the same history, you don't share the same present, you don't share the same anything, cultural differences, all that. So you're about to raise these children in a way where they will be accustomed to things that are not of their culture. And then in most cases, they are even alienated. So after you raise them, they go out into the world, they're confused as hell. They like their meats not seasoned or barely seasoned. And then when they get grown and the world says, you black, go over there with the black folks. Or if they're just seeking identity and seeking to fit in, they end up around their own kind anyways, only to find out how different they are. And a lot of the times they become the laughing stock, right? Because growing up, you've heard it. Black kids will tell you to your face, oh, you act so white. Why do you speak like that? What is that you're eating? Anyhow, man, adopt who you want to adopt. These children need a loving home. I'm just saying, if you're going to adopt black children and you are white, please do the extra work to give them a chance to be acclimated to their own culture, their own history. And definitely don't treat them like slaves. So Jean K. Whitefeather, that's the name of the wife, Jean K. Whitefeather, received up to 215 years in prison, and her husband, Donald Lance, will serve up to 160 years, which is the max of his sentence, after the pair were convicted of forced labor, human trafficking, and child abuse and neglect. He brought these children to West Virginia, a place that I know as almost heaven, and you put them in hell. This court will now put you in your hell, says Circuit Justice Judge Mary Claire Atker as she barked at the defendants on Wednesday. The judge was angry. Not for nothing, but West Virginia, the judge knows West Virginia as heaven. I'm not going to dispute her history with West Virginia. She might have had a beautiful time in West Virginia, but I don't know West Virginia as heaven. Most black folks I know West Virginia for its storied history of the KKK and their traumas that they left on black folks in West Virginia. Matter of fact, even today in 2025, there are lots of places in West Virginia that are sundown town. And for those of you who don't know what sundown town means, it means your black ass best not get caught around these parts when the sun go down, boy. Now, they took the kids to West Virginia to work on their land, on their farm. The judge said, "May God have mercy on your soul, because this court will not." The 4 oldest children, they wrote some emotional letters to their adoptive parents. All these kids wanted was to be loved. They didn't care who was adopting them, black or white. They didn't care about all the other stuff. They just wanted a stable home and a chance to have a childhood. Once your childhood is gone, that's it. It can't be remade, redone. You'll just be an adult trying to relive a childhood. You understand? So the children wrote some very emotional letters, which these letters were then read out loud in the courtroom. And the children said in these letters that they have endured life-changing trauma that has left them scarred with trust issues and nightmares. I mean, they really had them in slavery. One said, "I'll never understand how you can sleep at night. I want you to know that you are a monster." This is the oldest child, who just turned 18, said. Last month, the 18-year-old actually sued the couple, alleging several severe physical and emotional abuse incidents and neglect that has scarred her permanently. The couple adopted the 5 black siblings in Minnesota. Then they moved to a farm in Washington State in 2018 before picking up and moving to Sissonville, West Virginia in May of 2023, when the children were between the ages of 5 and 16 years old. Now, Whitefeather, the wife, and Lance, the husband, they were arrested months later in October 2023 after child and welfare led to the discovery of 2 teenagers. So you have Child Protective Services. Somebody saw something and called Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services was trying to keep up with the children. They kept moving so the children could not be found. It is also said that they inherited a multi-million-dollar property, land and house, so they had assets. And they had sold one of these multi-million-dollar property, and they had liquid money and assets available, so they were able to move around a bit to lose the children so they wouldn't be tracked. So Child and Welfare Services eventually discovered the children. The eldest daughter and her teenage brother were locked in a shed at the couple's home when Child and Welfare Services actually discovered them. And y'all got to see this shed. This shed is straight out of the movie Roots, the series with Kunta Kinte. This shed. Now, when the police bust open the barn doors with a crowbar, they found a porta potty inside. There was no lights. There was no running water. One of the teens told the police that they had been locked in that barn and had not been fed for 12 hours straight. And that's how they did them on a daily basis. They would work them outside and then they would lock them in a shed. It's 24 hours in a day. So if you work for 12 and you're locked in a shed for 12, the siblings said that the couple forced them to sleep on concrete floors with no mattresses. And they both wore dirty clothes, and they both had body odor that the officers described as just sick. Now, inside the main residence of the house, they kept a 9-year-old girl. You could only imagine. They kept a 9-year-old girl in the main residence of the house while locking her older siblings in a shed. The main residence, they found child services and the police found a 9-year-old girl. She was found crying in a loft, alone. 3 hours later, Lance, the husband, arrived at the property with an 11-year-old boy. Whitefeather soon followed, which is the wife, with a 5-year-old girl. All 5 were turned over to Child Protective Services after the couple's arrest. You got to wonder what they were doing with these children, why the 2 older ones were locked in a barn in a shed with no running water, nothing to sleep on, just a concrete floor, no mattress, no pillow, no blanket, sheet, nothing, and messed up, dirty, torn up clothes like plantation workers from back in the day. These are our slaves, so we're not going to spend too much money on them, but we need to feed them to keep them healthy enough to work the land, kind of thing. And then where was the wife coming from with that child? And where was the husband coming from with that little boy as they went in 2 separate directions? There's so much to this story that I think still has not been uncovered. Akers said that last year, after they were indicted, these children were targeted because of their race, and they were used basically as slaves. So during the trial, neighbors testified that they never saw these children playing, but they did witness them standing in a line, and they did witness them performing hard labor. Now, once Lance noticed his curious neighbors, that they were actually seeing what was going on, he kept the children hidden. The eldest child, the daughter, testified that most of the outdoor work took place at the family's Washington residence, where some of them were forced to use their hands to dig the ground. Forget planting these flowers and here's a little shovel. Use your damn hands and dig the ground. That's what your hands are for. Look at your black hands. They're made to dig the ground. She also said that the children were verbally abused all the time, using racial slurs. They were fed mostly peanut butter sandwiches at a scheduled time each day, and some children were forced to stand in their rooms for hours with their hands on their heads. It's a part of their punishment. To break them, to keep them in line, to establish dominance. For no other reason, the 2 oldest children were forced to sleep on the floor in their shared room, and they used the same bucket for bathroom, while the others held up a sheet for privacy from the home security cameras, according to testimony. So even in the room that they gave them inside the house, or in the shed rather, there was a home security system in it. There was an AC unit that was made into the wall in it, and the AC unit was never turned on, so they never got air. Each one had to hold up a sheet or a garbage bag, it looked like, in front of the camera to give the other sibling privacy while they used the bucket as a porta potty if they wanted to poop or pee. And remember, these are teenagers, and it's a boy and a girl. You don't want to see your damn sister, unless something is wrong with you. You don't want to see your teenage sister naked as a teenage boy. You definitely don't want to see her peeing or pooping. You definitely do not want to be in the bathroom at the time she is peeing or pooping. They traumatize these children. For what? The couple's defense attorney argued that they were just overwhelmed after taking in the children who were also suffering from abuse from their biological parents already. This is what their attorney got to court and said. Whitefeather's attorney, the wife's attorney, Mark Plants, said that during closing arguments that the couple's only crime was bad parenting. These are farm people that do farm chores, Your Honor. It wasn't about race, and it wasn't about forced labor. Yeah, right. If it wasn't about race and it wasn't about forced labor, why didn't you get 5 white children? Why did you not adopt 5 white children? Why did you not use racial slurs geared towards 5 white children? Because you knew what you had planned for them, and it was to work your fields. Free labor. Damn. I can't even imagine how traumatizing this must have been for children, especially if they had experienced any trauma in the system, and then thinking, oh God, please send somebody to adopt us. And then they were adopted, and then they experienced worse trauma. And now they're stuck between traumas thinking, I don't want to go back to the system, but I don't want to stay here either. Where do we go? We're stuck. It is said that this couple has a few $1,000,000 also. So hopefully the oldest teenager who has just turned 18, who has the lawsuit against them, sues for pain and suffering and for whatever else. And I hope that their assets are liquidated and the monies are turned over to the children so that they can have a chance at a normal life. It's a small price to pay, or a small reward, I should say, for the suffering that they went through. I appreciate good work. Thank you, Judge. That's a lot of years, but it's a lot of years well earned. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this video, and I'll catch you on the next video. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Peace.